In the heart of South America, a dream of liberty ignited a flame that would change the fate of an entire continent. Led by visionaries, fueled by sacrifice, and born in bloodshed, the story of Gran Colombia is not just history. It is a revolution of identity, a rebellion for freedom, and a forgotten empire that once aimed to unite an entire land. This is the rise of Gran Colombia, its revolutions, its heroes, and the storm that both created and destroyed it. Welcome to Empires Unearthed. The Spanish Empire once stretched across continents, commanding cities, mountains, and jungles of the New World with an iron grip. But in the shadows of colonial wealth, the seeds of discontent began to grow. People born in the Americas, called criollos, were denied power over their own lands, despite their European blood. They were treated as less than equal to the peninsulares who came from Spain. Resentment burned deeply in hearts of scholars, merchants, and soldiers who watched Spain reap the riches of their homeland. In 1808, a spark lit the fire. Napoleon invaded Spain, placing his brother Joseph Bonaparte on the throne. This chaos shattered the illusion of Spanish invincibility, and in Latin America, the cry for independence grew louder. Across Venezuela, Colombia, and Ecuador, the question arose: if Spain is weak, who should rule the Americas? Among those answering the call was Simón Bolívar, a young nobleman from Caracas, educated in Europe, inspired by the Enlightenment, and determined to free his homeland. Bolivar believed that liberty was not just possible, it was inevitable. His journey would begin with a single rebellion, but lead to a dream far greater than anyone imagined. As juntas formed in cities across New Granada and Venezuela, civil war erupted. Colonial governors were overthrown. The people were divided. Loyalists clashed with patriots. Cities burned. Chaos reigned. And from the ashes emerged new leaders, new ideologies, and a new fight for a different kind of future. Yet victory was far from certain. The revolutionaries were disorganized, without weapons or armies, and faced brutal suppression by royalist forces. But in their failure, they found purpose. In their defeats, they found heroes. And in their exile, they prepared for a war that would shake the continent to its core. Simón Bolívar returned from exile with a single mission: to liberate Venezuela and New Granada. His army was small, his resources limited, but his belief in the cause of freedom was unshakable. From the Caribbean coast, he launched a daring campaign through deadly jungles and steep mountain passes, pushing toward the Andes with faith as his weapon and unity as his banner. By 1819, Bolivar made a bold move to cross the Andes with a ragged force of soldiers, facing snow, hunger, and exhaustion. Men died by the dozens, frozen and starved. But Bolivar pressed on because he knew that history was not written by the comfortable, but by the brave. At the Battle of Boyacá, his determination paid off. Bolivar crushed Spanish forces, liberating New Granada, what is now Colombia. The victory sent shockwaves through the continent and made Bolivar a national hero. More than that, it brought the vision of a united republic closer than ever before. Around him, other leaders rose. Antonio José de Sucre in the south was a military genius, a loyal general, and a revolutionary with a strategic mind. Together with Bolivar, he pushed into Quito and freed it in 1822. Their victories gave birth to a dream: one nation, many peoples, united by revolution. Gran Colombia. Gran Colombia was declared in 1819, uniting Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, and Panama under one republic. Bolivar was made its president, his dream realized at last. Or so it seemed, because though the Spanish were retreating, the hardest battle was yet to come. The war for unity and identity had only just begun.
Gran Colombia was more than a country. It was an idea, a bold vision of Latin American unity with Bolivar at its helm. It stood as a symbol of hope for millions who had suffered under colonial rule. But no dream, no matter how noble, can escape the weight of reality, and soon cracks began to appear in the foundation of this fragile republic. The territories that made up Gran Colombia were vast and diverse. From the Caribbean coastlines to the Andes highlands, people spoke in different accents, held different customs, and lived different lives. The war had united them in struggle, but now in peace, their differences became more visible than ever. Bolivar traveled tirelessly from one province to another, trying to hold the republic together. His words were powerful, his ideals sincere, but the regional elites began to question the central authority of Bogotá and the concentration of power in Bolivar's hands. For some, he was the liberator. For others, a new kind of tyrant. In 1826, a rebellion erupted in Venezuela, led by José Antonio Páez, a respected military leader and once a trusted ally of Bolivar. Páez demanded autonomy for Venezuela and refused to follow orders from the capital. Bolivar rushed to negotiate and calm the storm, but the damage had already begun. The seeds of separation were sown. At the same time, economic hardships gripped the young nation. Trade was unstable, debt was rising, and wars had drained the treasury. Many citizens began to wonder if independence had truly brought them freedom, or just replaced one form of oppression with another. Tensions escalated, and trust began to fade. Despite all this, Bolivar refused to give up. He believed unity was the only way to protect liberty from foreign threats and internal chaos. He called for a Congress in 1828 to write a new constitution, one that would preserve Gran Colombia. But what followed was not unity, it was betrayal.
In 1828, the Congress of Ocaña was supposed to be the turning point. Bolivar believed that a new constitution could unify the nation and bring lasting peace. But the delegates were divided, torn between federalist ideals and Bolivar's push for a strong central government. The Congress ended in deadlock with no agreement, no resolution. In desperation, Bolivar declared himself dictator of Gran Colombia, not out of hunger for power, but from fear that the republic he built would fall apart. The move was controversial. Many of his closest allies turned against him. Protests erupted. Newspapers called him a traitor. The liberator was now seen by many as an oppressor. Assassination attempts followed, most notably the September Conspiracy of 1828 in Bogotá. Bolivar narrowly escaped death thanks to the bravery of his lover, Manuela Sáenz. But the message was clear. His grip on power was slipping, and his dream was on the verge of collapse. In the years that followed, the unity of Gran Colombia crumbled one piece at a time. Venezuela declared its independence in 1830, followed by Ecuador, and eventually New Granada. The Grand Republic that once stretched across northern South America dissolved into separate nations, each following its own uncertain path. Bolivar, heartbroken and ill, resigned from the presidency. He retreated from public life, and in 1830, he died in exile, alone, his dream shattered by the very people he had fought to free. In his final words, he said, "I have plowed the sea," meaning all his efforts had come to nothing. But Bolivar's legacy lived on, not in the republic he created, but in the spirit of independence he inspired. Gran Colombia may have failed as a nation, but it succeeded in sparking a wave of freedom movements across the continent. Bolivar remains a symbol of hope, unity, and sacrifice. The story of Gran Colombia is a story of revolution, vision, and the limits of power. It reminds us that even the greatest dreams can falter without understanding, without compromise, and without the strength to hold together what war once united.